All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on this Thursday. And we've got some Seattle Seahawks news on deck here. This came out yesterday afternoon. A lot of people have probably already seen it. It was a fairly significant thing to hit the timeline yesterday, so I wasn't able to make a video right when it happened, but I want to go ahead and talk about it a little bit now, which in some ways kind of works out because now we have a little bit more information. So this video is going to be about injury stuff. We have some injury-related updates, and unfortunately, they're not good. Or at the very least, I'd say more bad than good. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So let's start with the easy one. Let's start with the obvious one. Zach Charbonnet was placed on the physically unable to perform list. I wasn't even going to make a video about that because everybody knew that Charbonnet was going to be on the PUP. I think that pretty much everybody understands that he's going to miss the start of the season. We don't know exactly how much. It's going to be at least 4 games, I have to believe. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be like 6. Could be 8. It could be more. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns here, but pretty much everybody knew that Charbonnet was going to start on the PUP. And if he's somehow able to make it back for week 1, it'd be kind of a miracle. So, nothing unexpected there. Still unfortunate, but the unfortunate thing happened way back in January, not here. So that one's easy. We're not really stressed about that one. It's unfortunate, but we've known. The big thing that came down yesterday, and the main reason why I'm making this video and the main thing we're going to talk about is Nick Emmanwori. So a few days ago, Emmanwori goes on the PUP. Doesn't seem like a big deal. Seems like it's just kind of a little maintenance thing, not a concern, not something that's going to keep him out more than a couple of days even. Seems pretty insignificant. And as it turns out, it's not quite that insignificant. So according to recent reports, this is a Brady Henderson here, Nick Emmanwori had surgery on his right ankle. And it is said by several people, and I don't know if it's an undisputed fact yet, but it does seem to be the case, that the injury is related to the injury he had last year right before the Super Bowl that he played through. So it seems like that injury has lingered, and that's a little bit worse. I think we can all understand that, if you come into training camp with some brand new bump or bruise, or maybe you're just a little out of shape, that seems like a very minor thing that is barely even worth thinking about. This, however, because it's an actual injury that had him on the injured list back for the Super Bowl, this matters more. For one, it just kind of implies that this injury has been baking in his ankle for months and months now, and it hasn't gone away. And like Dan Viennes points out here, if you take a look at Brady's full article that he posted over on ESPN, Emmanwori knew he might eventually require surgery. They tried to avoid surgery by managing his ankle over the offseason because you would always prefer, I think in most cases anyway, you would prefer not to have the surgery. But as the ramp up for camp started, he continued to experience soreness, and he opted to have an arthroscopic procedure that was performed earlier this month. So this probably happened a couple weeks ago, so at least we got that going for us. But as it turns out, there's something a little bit more serious going on here, and something that I think needs to be discussed a little bit, and something that, in theory, could linger on into the regular season, so it's a little bit less cool now. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer, best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today, and remember to always gamble responsibly. So to recap, Nick Emmanwori gets hurt at some point during last season. The injury gets significant enough to where he ends up on the injury report going into the Super Bowl with his ankle, and he plays through it. He plays fine. It's not that big of a deal. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. But then during the off season, he tries to work his way through it without surgery, just kind of managing it, and hopes that by the time training camp rolls around, he's going to be good without the surgery. But now we're here. He still wasn't good. So they decided to go ahead and go with the surgery because they believe this is getting up to the latest possible point where they can have the surgery and have him ready for the start of the season. That seems to be the timeline here. So unfortunate that it could not be avoided. But again, I have to believe there's some kind of a strategy at play here where they don't want to risk losing him, even if it's just for one game. Because in theory, if they thought they were going to need surgery back in June, they could have done it then. They could have done it in May. They could have done it at pretty much any point. I'm sure Emmanwori would have been on board with that, but they waited until early July for a reason. I hope that reason is because they know that he can get the surgery at that point and be ready for the regular season. As of right now, we're 48 days away from the start of the season, the first game of the year against the Patriots. So when he had the surgery, it was probably 62, 63 days. Again, we don't know exactly when the surgery happened, but that seems to be about that seems to be about where we are. So unfortunate, but hopefully a plan was in place with the timing. Corbin pointed out that Emmanwori did not look like he had problems last week getting around. So if you piece the timeline together, Emmanwori got the procedure done earlier this month. Let's assume that's like 2 weeks ago. Nick Emmanwori getting around on his ankle at camp last week looked fine. So maybe he's close. Maybe he can like get around a little bit, but he's just not at full strength yet. Maybe he could not play in an NFL game, but he can do walkthrough stuff. I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, even if I was there, I probably wouldn't be able to figure it out, right? Like the doctors know, maybe Nick himself knows, but seems like things are going to be okay. Corbin also went on to say it's also possible he was already several weeks off the surgery and didn't need a boot anymore and is well underway in recovery. So that's not too far away from what Brady Henderson had to say about the surgery happening earlier this month. I mean, if that's the case, then it's kind of weird he's on the PUP, but maybe that indicates that he's going to come off the PUP very quickly and they're just playing it safe because they can afford to. So, all in all, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's a bigger deal than it initially looked. I think that's reasonable to say. I think it's fair to say that there was a time where this looked like nothing, like basically just kind of a footnote that means very, very little, if anything. And as it turns out, there's a little something here. It now seems at the very least possible, although highly improbable, that this becomes an issue this season. Now, the surgery should eliminate that as a realistic possibility, but this is clearly a noticeable injury, a injury of some note, which is not just some random little ding that you got during the off season because you were, I don't know, a dog jumped on you or something like that. This is something that he was working through for months during the off season and ultimately could not beat without surgery. All right. Nemhauser talks a little bit more here about it. Emmanwori injured the ankle multiple times last season, including before the Super Bowl. And players often get procedures this time of year to prepare for the long season. If you remember last year, Charles Cross had surgery on, I think, his finger. And it was about this time of the year. And it was because he was trying to not need surgery on it, but he did. And they felt like July or, early to mid-July was about the latest you could push it without it becoming an issue for the season. So this is not an uncommon thing. I don't think there's anything to be alarmed by, but I mean, at the end of the day, Emmanwori is a young player, right? Emmanwori is still a young player, and he's not somebody who I think can just roll out of bed and play in an NFL game yet. So he needs his off season. He needs his reps in training camp. He needs his reps in preseason. I do not believe that we're at the point yet where we can just trust him to know where to be in all cases. And I mean, even with older players, like I remember 5 years ago, we did this with Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown skipped training camp, or most of it anyway, because he wanted a new contract, gave in eventually without the contract, and he did not play well for about the first month and a half of the season, maybe even 2 months, probably because he missed the offseason work. So that stuff still matters. All right, so that's really about all I want to say about that. I know I spent a lot of time on that to eventually arrive at the conclusion of doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a bigger deal than initially thought. So I wanted to talk about that a bit. By the way, one little minor note here. The Harrison Bryant release or waive or whatever you want to call it. We waived him a few days ago to make room for Brandon Johnson. Looks like he was waived with an injury designation. Not that it really matters to us. But yeah, I guess it's another piece of injury news. And maybe he wasn't necessarily released just because we felt confident that Barner and Arroyo are fine. So I'm interested to see if we make it through Friday without Barner, Arroyo, or Saubert being put on the PUP. Because so far they haven't been, but we know they missed a lot of time in the offseason before now. So if those guys are completely healthy by now and are able to stay off the PUP, that would be great. We all know how important the tight ends are going to be this year. Okay, I'm going to go and get on out of here. Let me know what you guys think. Just rounding up some stuff, and I wanted to provide some context on the Emmanwori stuff because it matters. All right, go Hawks. More videos soon, and see you guys later.